Silent Hill is finally back from the dead, and this time around, Konami's going all in to return the series back to its former glory, with multiple games, including a brand new adventure called Silent Hill F. But can this new era for the franchise replicate the incredible vision that Kojima had with PT? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about the new standalone game and how it compares to PT. So, let's dive right in. First off, Konami concludes transmission with Silent Hill F. Silent Hill is one of those franchises that refuses to die down, despite not having a proper entry in well over a decade. Obviously, Kojima's PT demo had a lot to do with the rise in excitement levels too, but there's just so much nostalgia-driven speculation that keeps the hype cycle going. Thankfully though, the days of agonizing rumors are over now, as Konami revealed its future plans for the series in a live stream called the Silent Hill Transmission. Oh, and it was a pretty good showcase too, as not only did we finally get confirmation of the much-anticipated Silent Hill 2 remake from the Bloober team, but also an entirely new game called Silent Hill F. As a matter of fact, this new thing was the big closer for the showcase and definitely piqued our interest. Now, we didn't get a gameplay trailer or anything elaborate out of it, but even the teaser trailer was more than good enough to present the general idea of the vibe that the game is going for. For instance, it starts off with a woman running through a hall and being tormented by plant-like tendrils coming out of the walls. You know, your classic fleshy body horror stuff. That being said, perhaps the most fascinating piece of tidbit that's come out of this is the fact that it's set in 1960s Japan. For context, most other games have been set in modern-day America, and that in itself would make this a unique take on the Silent Hill franchise. Up next, who's developing Silent Hill F? Even though we're all excited to see the return of such a prolific franchise, there are still a few question marks looming over whether it's going to be worth it. After all, it's not like that old Team Silent is still working on these games. As a matter of fact, most of that core team disbanded decades ago. For instance, the OG games director, Keiichiro Toyama, left the franchise to work on the Siren franchise, which in a way was a spiritual successor. The point is that the people who made those initial games such a hit aren't around to do that anymore. So Konami's had to turn towards NeoBards Entertainment to develop Silent Hill F. Now, if you don't know, this is the same studio that's currently wrapping up Resident Evil Reverse. Oh, and interesting enough, the story is being written by Japanese writer Ryukishi07. So there's a ton of strange collab stuff going on, which at its surface makes little sense. What's more, NeoBards is a weird choice for Silent Hill F. Let's be clear, we have seen nothing substantial enough to suggest how this game will turn out. But if you go and look at NeoBards' history, you can't help but wonder whether the studio's even up to the mark for a project of this size. After all, it's not exactly a developer that we attach to AAA video games. As a matter of fact, the Hong Kong team has always been a support studio for Capcom and has helped with the development of Resident Evil games. Take the RE2 and RE3 remakes, for example. NeoBards was responsible for porting them to the next-gen consoles. In a way, Reverse is the biggest project that they've worked on so far, which honestly isn't very promising. Why? Well, you see, the multiplayer experience was supposed to launch alongside Resident Evil Village last year, and as we all know, that game is literally just coming out of development hell for its launch alongside RE8's Winter's expansion, so they don't exactly have an impressive track record of making standalone content. On top of that, it really feels like the developer's spreading itself thin by working on so many projects at the same time, and presuming that they've already been working on Silent Hill F for at least a few months, things don't look that promising. Then again, we should reserve judgment until we can get a proper look at the gameplay and everything, cause maybe they've got the sauce to live up to the franchise's lofty reputation. Not to mention Konami's hesitation with Silent Hill. The original Silent Hill came out over 20 years ago on the original PlayStation, and yet to this day, it's revered as one of the best survival horror games of all time. And honestly, it's been kinda weird to think that Konami hasn't been making the franchise all these years. Of course, the Japanese publisher's got a pachinko machine obsession that's stopping it from making any games. Even so, it's been leaving a lot of money on the table. That said, we can't blame them for biding their time for a team that fits their vision. After all, they probably don't want a repeat of the whole Kojima situation. Now, all of these things are great, and most fans are excited to see the series revival, but with no substantial footage or gameplay, there are still some massive question marks hanging about. For instance, the Silent Hill 2 remake is being made by Layers of Fear and the medium developer Bloober team, which again is a strange choice. Don't get us wrong, Bloober's done enough to get a project of this size, but at the same time, they haven't been making hits either. On top of that, there's a pretty strong sentiment from the community about the team's terrible portrayal of mental illness in the medium. So, the writing on this remake is definitely gonna be a point of contention. Coming up, is it even possible to make a Silent Hill in 2022? Even if you disregard the fact that Bloober team or NeoBards Entertainment's working on these games, there are still some issues that Konami would have to address, like say, the general atmospheric vibe that made Silent Hill such an incredible series in the first place. Most people would argue that the franchise was a product of its time and was meant to always live in that PS2 era with low draw distances and that low poly look. As a matter of fact, a lot of critics have gone as far as to say that Silent Hill's concept just doesn't work as a franchise, and perhaps the publisher would have been better off without this rally for a revival. Still, just the fact that NeoBards going for a fresh setting and delving into the body horror side of things means that they understand this conundrum and are ready to reinvent the franchise for more modern audiences. So you've got to take the positives at this point in time. Now for the Silent Hills demo remade in Unreal Engine 5. Kojima's ugly divorce from Konami was one of the most controversial moments in video game history. The worst thing about it, though, was the fact that we never got to see his vision for the Silent Hill franchise come to fruition. Like, that PT demo on PS4 was so good that people actually sold their consoles on eBay for some pretty insane money after it was taken off the store. That said, with these new Silent Hill game announcements from the publisher, we can't help but wonder what that original concept could have looked like. Well, thanks to the YouTuber Enfant Terrible, we don't have to stress our brains thinking about it all that much, because they've remade the piece of Kojima's cancelled game in Epic's Unreal Engine 5. Using audio files from the demo, the short gameplay chunk takes us around the ominous alleyways and the dark corridors of a school that featured heavily in Silent Hill's teaser. Also, despite being a fan-made trailer, it still somehow portrays that same unsettling vibe of the franchise while also putting that signature Kojima cinematic touch on top. And honestly, we just want the Japanese creator to shake hands with Konami again, because this is too good to ignore. Finally, is Konami following that PT high with Silent Hill? One of the biggest reasons behind this franchise revival is the fan movement that's been active since, well, that initial PT trailer. After all, it'd been a while since we've seen some fantastic AAA horror games. Plus, with Resident Evil also getting more action-oriented, there's definitely a gap for more curated experiences like Kojima's project. Now the question is, if Konami has brought Silent Hill back after listening to the fan pleas, is it actually willing to give them what they want? Well, if that Silent Hill F trailer's anything to go by, then definitely. But then again, we're not sure that anyone in the world can be as creative and weird with their ideas as Hideo Kojima. Besides, NeoBards isn't exactly the most prolific horror game developer in the industry, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see just how far they drift from that original concept, and how well it stacks up against the brilliant Silent Hill demos. And that's a wrap for this video. Are you excited to play these new Silent Hill games? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. See you at the next one!